Hi, welcome to the One Life Church devotional series where we cover the entire Bible in 20 months. Well, today's chapters are Psalm 95 and 1 Timothy chapter 6. Now, in both these chapters, we're dealing with rest, we're dealing with work, we're dealing with financial gain. So here I am reclining on our couch here in our apartment in Cape Town. What a great place to come and put your feet up after a long day. Now, in 1 Timothy chapter 6, this is what I think was going on here. I think teachers had got in. Remember, Timothy's come to sort some teachers out that are bringing heresy. And they were basically saying, listen, become Christians because, listen, you're going to make lots of money. And God is going to, give you a cushy life after you've made the money. And it had crept into the work environment where some people were slaves and some people were owners of those slaves. And basically, the slaves were being taught, get saved, and then guess what? You're going to be, set free, and you're going to have a cushy life. Because it says, people have, come in and they've robbed us of the truth, who think that godliness is a means to financial gain. But he says, but godliness with contentment is great gain. And then he says something quite radical. He says to those slaves, actually, don't get all hung up about fighting for your emancipation. Trust God in this. Trust Him. And then he turns to the rich guys and he says, listen, for the love of money is the root of all kind of evil. Some people eager for money have wandered from the faith, pierced themselves with many griefs. I watched a movie last night with Sue. It was like a documentary type movie of a guy called Paul Getty. At that time, the richest man in the universe. And it was a tragedy. He amassed this wealth because of the haunting voice of his dad that said he would amount to nothing. And that played out in his son. So he says to his son in the movie, you realize I couldn't spend time with you because I had to work on my empire. And that son went off and became a druggie. And then the grandson, he was also a victim of all this, kidnapped. Just pierced with many griefs as you chase after money. But you, man of God, flee from all this and pursue righteousness, godliness, faith, love, endurance, and gentleness. And then he mentions an example of a rich guy who was pierced with griefs. And he mentions Pontius Pilate, actually. And he says, Jesus made his good confession in front of Pilate. What did he say in front of Pilate? Remember, Pilate was the guy who crucified Jesus, authorized the crucifixion of Jesus. This is what Jesus said to him. You say that I'm a king. In fact, the reason I was born and came into the world was to testify to the truth. Everyone on my side listens to me. The truth of the matter is, it's not your power. God gave you your power, Pontius Pilate. You can't do anything unless God lets you. So Paul says to Timothy, command those who are rich in this present world not to be arrogant or put their hope in wealth. Command them to be good, to be generous, willing to share, and this way they store up treasures in heaven. Now, in Psalm 95, we pick up the same theme of work and rest. This is a famous psalm, and that many songs have been written on it. Let us come before the Lord with thanksgiving, extol Him with music and song, etc. But when you get to verse 8, do not harden your hearts as they did in Meribah in the day of Massah in the wilderness. From there onwards, this is almost entirely quoted in Hebrews 3 from verse 7 onwards. So what's going on here? Well, this account in Meribah and Massah was where the children of Israel decided they were not going to rest in God's promise. They were angry with Moses and really wanted to kill him. And so God says to him, because you didn't believe me, because you didn't rest in me, you're not going to enter the promised land. And so the writer to the Hebrews, when he goes back and quotes this whole thing, says, there's more than just the promised land rest at play here. Because this is where the writer to the Hebrews in chapter 4 says, he says, if David had been talking about a piece of land in the Middle East, then there wouldn't be a rest for us to enter into today. But he wasn't. Because David says, and remember now, David was writing, this is what the Hebrews writer says, David was writing hundreds of years later. David says, now there's a day, we have to enter into the rest now. So in other words, the rest that the writer of the Hebrews is talking about is not entering into a piece of land there in the Middle East. It's not even what David was talking about. David was talking about a rest into the future. And so the writer of the Hebrews puts it this way. He says, if Joshua had given them rest, God wouldn't have spoken about another day. There remains then a Sabbath rest for you and for me. And then this is how you enter into that rest. Therefore, when the Bible says therefore, it's giving you the way to enter into rest. You know, I think I can rest like lying on the couch here, but this is temporary. This rest is going to run out. So it can't sustain me for long. No, there is a rest. Therefore, since we have a great high priest who ascended into heaven, Jesus, the Son of God, let us hold firmly to the faith we profess. The only thing similar about the people not going into the promised land and to us living a life of striving and straining and trying to amass wealth and trying to find things to give us rest is a lack of faith. And so God says, trust me. Don't trust money. Don't trust your job. Don't trust your own ability to relax yourself. No, that there is a rest you enter into. And Pilate was told about it. And you and me have been told about it. We enter that rest when our lives are put into his hands and we have faith in him. Hold on to him. He'll give your soul rest. He'll give your mind rest. He'll give your family rest. He wants us to live in rest. Jesus is our Sabbath day's rest.